Today we're going to be checking out the all-new Versa Pedalboard from Holeyboard. Good afternoon, welcome back. How's it going? If you're new here, hi, my name is Miles. I do music stuff. And today we're going to be checking out a new product from a company that if you've been here a while, you've heard of before, and that's the company Holeyboard. So you may have seen previously that I had done a video talking about my pedalboard from Holeyboard, where I did some customization to it in terms of painting it and adding hinges underneath the second level so that I can flip it open and access like the power supply and stuff like that. But also talking about the company and giving some background on them and my thoughts on the direction that the company's been heading in as they introduce new products. Well, after releasing that video, Chris, the man behind the board, or more specifically the owner of Holeyboard, had reached out to me in regards to my video. Additionally, he wanted to offer me the opportunity to check out a new product that the company was rolling out. In this case, that product being their new line of pedal boards called the Versa. I assume Versa is short for versatile, which makes sense because this line of boards offers something that is fairly unique that you probably won't see in other pedal boards from other manufacturers. At face value, the Versa line of boards is pretty simple and compact, but just like the 1, 2, 3 series that Holeyboard offers along with their mini series, you have the ability to connect multiple pedal boards together to make one bigger one, utilizing what the company refers to as Z connectors. And my guess is that Chris probably saw the size board that I've been using for my main pedal board when I go to play out with my band and just in general. And so, with that in mind, he actually sent me 2 of the Versa boards, or as the company is marketing them as, the Versa Duo. If you were to order a Versa Duo for yourself, it comes with the 2 boards as well as the Z connector to connect them together to make one singular board. But let's talk about the design of this actual pedal board. The design they have going on here is very similar to what the company has with their mini series of boards as far as being a simple sheet of metal with an incline and some holes punched in it to loop zip ties through. However, what the Versa has that the mini and the 1, 2, 3 series do not is a midsection valley that divides the flat surface into 2 separate sections, 2 separate levels, and that also has a line of holes going along that valley. So why the valley? Does it offer a benefit that otherwise wouldn't be there with just a flat surface? Well, from my experience so far with this board, I've come to find that there's 2 primary benefits that I've found from it. For one, it offers an ease of organization. It offers a different vantage point as far as organizing the cables that you would otherwise have running underneath the underside of the pedal board itself. Additionally, if you have your pedals laid out in a manner where the signal chain is not exactly to the position on the board that you have your pedals in, and you have to run longer cables from one pedal to the next, having this central valley allows for a much easier time in facilitating these weird connections between your pedals. And with the slits that are in the valley itself, if you're running cables from a power supply that's mounted on the underside of the board, you don't have to necessarily run those cables from the top of the flat surface itself in order to reach pedals that are on the bottom of the surface of the pedal board itself. You could run them through that valley and then out to where they need to go. And potentially that will make things much easier for you and makes this board much more versatile. And just like with all Holeyboards, having the holes that are in the surface of the board itself makes it so much easier to run cables from your power supply or just make everything look much more organized as a whole. Like typically when you're trying to put together a pedal board and you're trying to keep everything organized, you want to make sure that you're running your cables in a manner underneath the board so that you're not stepping on them when you're going to use your pedals and that they're not getting pinched when you step on the pedals themselves because they're running underneath like a corner of the pedal itself. And so having all these access points between the valley and the surface holes themselves makes this whole process much easier to accomplish. And because of the simplicity of the construction of the board, if you're someone like me who is constantly switching out and reordering their stuff on their board as far as their signal chain and individual pedals, that process is incredibly simple, especially if you're using zip ties over Velcro. Plus, if you're the type of person that has gear for a little while and then after you're done using it, you try to resell it, you're better suited not having to rip a bunch of Velcro strips off it when you're trying to put it up on Reverb for sale. And like I said, the process of mounting everything to this board has been really simple, and you have a decent amount of space available as far as surface area. Like, while I was putting this board together with the stuff that I had on the old board, I realized that I have a lot of space right here, which got my gears turning and considering getting a loop switcher, which I've had my mind on for a little while, and I think maybe now is the time to do so. So overall, the structure of this board is simple enough and straightforward enough in terms of actually utilizing it that anyone can do it and do it without having any real problems. However, I want to take a moment here to talk about some of the issues that I ran into while setting up the board and some of the ways that you can consider troubleshooting issues like that if you decide to get a board like this for yourself. So for my pedal boards, I like to use isolated power supplies, and in this case, I'm using the Pedal Power Mondo from Voodoo Labs. As you can see, it's kind of big. On this side, you have all the inputs for your power going out to your pedals, and on the opposite side of it, you have the input for the power cable itself to plug this thing in, as well as an auxiliary outlet so that if you have an external plug that you want to plug in that you can't plug in anywhere else, you don't have a nearby outlet or something, you can use that in that case. The problem that I ran into is that on the rear side of the pedal board, you have spots that are routed out for accessing some sort of power supply with a power cable, or if you have an auxiliary plug of some sort that you're trying to plug in. The problem I ran into is that with my power supply, it doesn't quite line up with the slots that are on the rear side of the pedal board. The other issue I ran into initially when setting the board up is that the way you connect the two boards together is with a singular Z connector that is mounted on the lower level of the board itself, which can leave the higher level, the secondary top level of the board, feeling disconnected and sort of flimsy. So I was a little weary about that. And so with those issues in mind, I had reached out to Chris directly in hopes that he could give me some insight on how to troubleshoot these issues. And not only did he get back to me, but he offered me some great ideas in terms of how to go about moving forward. As far as the connection between the two boards, making them into one singular board, Chris noted a quote in regards to engineering. The quote says, "Anyone can make a bridge that stands up. It takes an engineer to build a bridge that just stands." And this wasn't just a random quote that Chris was throwing my way. Chris has a background in engineering, to which he pointed out that more often than not, the forces that are being brought upon the pedal board are going to be downward from the floor. And so having a Z connector at the floor level makes the most sense, considering that it's going to be on the ground and you as the user are going to probably be stepping on it while it's got pedals mounted to the top of it. The odds are that anyone using these boards is going to be using them in a way where they have to hold it up for an extended period of time is not likely. And so to add an additional connector between the two boards on the higher level is kind of unnecessary. Plus, you have the option of mounting effects over that separation between the two boards, which will perhaps give it a little bit more bracing as well. But again, since it's going to be on the floor, it's not really necessary because all the points where you need support for any weight that's being put upon it, they're going to be going towards the floor, and those points are where they need to be in that regard. And as per usual, Chris, just like with his other pedalboard designs, is offering a lifetime warranty on the Versa design. But honestly, I think you'd have a really hard time damaging these boards from just using them. And I think Chris knows that too. Now, as far as the power supply issue, Chris had a couple different suggestions to offer me as far as moving forward from here. Obviously, not all power supplies are created equal in terms of their size and their voltage, and so you're going to run into issues like this from time to time regardless of the manufacturer of a pedal board. But one option he suggested to me was to go out and get myself a right angle power cable for my power supply, which, I'll be honest, I didn't know existed. But by using a right angle power supply, that would allow me to bypass trying to utilize those rear slots in the board itself. And then I can actually pull the power supply back further and give myself more room for routing cables going from it to my pedals. And so I got myself a right angle power cable, which solved the problem completely. And not only that, it's actually longer than the one that came with the power supply in the first place. So that's even better. Additionally, Chris suggested a couple of different power supply options to choose from that might be more beneficial to my needs. One being the Phoenix from the company Walrus. He also suggested the power supplies from the company Seahawks? I'm sure someone out there knows how it's pronounced. You can let me know in the comments. I don't know. But as far as those being an option as a power supply, those will work good too, because not only is the power cable for it mounted on the side so that it's doing the same thing that the right angle power cable that I have now is doing for the power supply that I have, but it's also a slimmer profile overall. It also has lights on the front of each input to let you know that it's got power coming from it, and the lights will go out if there's something wrong or if there's a disconnect or whatever, so that's useful as well. Now, if you're happy with the power supply that you have and you don't necessarily want to utilize any of those options and you want to utilize those slots on the rear of the board itself, the other option you can consider in that case is putting some sort of spacer between your pedal board and the board itself before you mount it so that it's standing taller, making it easier for it to be reachable from those slots. You know, maybe use that old case that your phone came in. Why? What are you holding on to it for? I know there's someone else out there that's doing the same thing. Why do I have this box still? Why? It's like a brag? Like, doesn't matter. iPhones suck. But don't get the wrong idea and think that this scenario is something that's unique to me and what I have for a power supply and a pedal board, because it's something that has the potential to take place regardless of the pedal board manufacturer or power supply that you have. For example, my pedal train pedal board that's a bit smaller, in order to mount the power supply at all to the underside of the board, I had to go and purchase some secondary brackets from Pedal Train. I had to drill into the metal itself in order to mount the brackets, and then I had to make sure that those brackets were connected to the power supply by taking screws out of that and then screwing the brackets onto that, which was a whole process in itself that involved me breaking a drill bit after it hopped off the metal of the pedal board itself and then drilled a hole in my carpet and almost through my toe. And yeah, that was annoying. Plus this board uses Velcro and that's annoying too. So yeah, there's always something. So overall, when it comes to the Versa, what do I think? Considering how critical I was of the 123 model from Holeyboard as well as their mini series, is there any hope for the Versa in my opinion? The answer for me is yes, because I think that there's a lot to be appreciated here and there's a lot to be utilized with this design. The design is simple enough that you have the option to make your setup of your pedals as neat as you want, as complex as you want, or as simple as you want. There's no right or wrong way to go about it. And with that said, it makes for a board that would be useful for someone who's just putting together their first pedal board, all the way up to someone who is a gigging musician that's going out and playing every weekend and just wants something that's going to be reliable. I think the Versa serves to be a good middle ground between like those Boss suitcase pedal boards and like the more elaborate and expensive sort of boutique custom pedal boards that are available. And for $119 for the Versa as a single or $199 for the Duo, that's a price point you really can't argue with. You get all the components that you need to get set up right out of the box, and when it comes to taking things off your board and adding new stuff, it's just a matter of having zip ties. You don't have to worry about going through the hassle of dealing with Velcro strips. So if you're in the market for a new pedal board and you're weary about going down the road of the Pedal Trains or the Temple Audios or the Rock boards and their modules, or you don't want to go down the road of the accordion boards like the ones from Diodario, in that case, I would highly recommend that you give some consideration to Holeyboard's Versa series. So that's all I have for you guys for today. A great big thank you to Chris and everyone over at Holeyboard for sending this out my way. I've been so happy ever since just getting an initial response from Chris from my first video. And when this box showed up at my house with this pedal board in it, I was really excited to check it out. And I'm so glad that I ended up liking it. If you're interested in finding out more about the Versa pedal board line as well as the other lines of boards that are offered by Holeyboard, I'll have a link down in the description to their website and you can check everything out over there. And if you like what I'm doing here and you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel, it makes these videos more visible to more people, and I'd love to get the word out on all the topics that I discuss on this channel to more people. And it's free, so help me out. And if you like what I'm doing here and you want to support the channel further than just liking and subscribing, I'll leave a link down in the description to my Patreon page where you can check out all the perks that are attached to your commitment over there. Big shout out to my patrons for making videos like these possible, because really I couldn't do this without you guys, so thank you, thank you, Thank you. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for your time and checking this video out. I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe, keep playing. Peace.